All right. Hey,
Nice seeing you, Bob. Thank you. I appreciate you coming down.
Yeah, of course. No,
I thought
I'm
that'd
looking
be
forward to telling the story.
And send me a picture too, would you? I forgot my camera.
Yeah, don't
Hi,
worry
Carl. Let's go. Hey,
Okay.
And what is this? What is this stuff? Kale for the governor. Well, all right. Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm really glad to see everyone. I'm honored. It's kind of mind-blowing, actually. The first press conference we had was 3 years ago, and sometimes it feels like 10 years ago. But I'm so glad to stand here in front of you with some good news.
Woohoo!
For 38 months, I've been in a legal wrestling match with the fast food giants Chick-fil-A and the U.S. Trademark Office. Well, I'm proud to announce that as of December 9th, I have been granted a trademark for my design, Eat More Kale. And as important as that trademark is, I've called Chick-fil-A's bluff on their cease and desist demands.
Yeah.
I am not ceasing and desisting. I am thriving thanks to people like you and thanks to Vermont and people from beyond. So I do love to talk. And the long version of this story can take about an hour and a half. So, my mom talking about short stories, don't get her started. So, let me give you some background as quickly as I can, please. 3.5 years ago, I applied for a trademark with the help of my local lawyer, Dan Richardson.
Hey!
To protect my easily duplicated and copied design from real copycat artists, actual people that were taking my design, putting it on t-shirts, making websites, and selling them as if they were my business, Eat More Kale. Well, that's awfully confusing to the customer base that I've worked for over 13 years to develop. So when I applied for the trademark, I presumed it would be smooth sailing. 2 months after applying for the trademark, Dan contacts me and says, "Bo, you're not going to believe this, but Chick-fil-A has sent you a cease and desist letter, and they've blocked your trademark application at the trademark office." I said, "Well, Dan, what do we do about this?" And Dan says, "We're going to fight it." And he says, "I'll fight it for free as long as it takes."
Yeah!
So I went to social media with the news. I asked Dan, I said, "Can I let the world know about this?" And Dan says, "I'm not so sure. That's really not how we do it. We tend to be quiet about these issues." And I said, "Well, because I'm kind of handy with my Facebook account, and if you're not telling me not to, I'm going to tell the world about this letter." And when I posted the letter for people to see on Facebook, the world responded. And the world responded, "No, we are not confused by Chick-fil-A's Eat More Chicken slogan versus your Eat More Kale slogan." My customers responded, "No, we're not confused." Chick-fil-A's customers responded and said, "Guess what? We're not confused. And in fact, we're a little insulted that Chick-fil-A thinks that we can't tell the difference between a hand-printed t-shirt and a chicken sandwich." Well, let's just say help arrived in every fashion from every corner of the United States, but very specifically here in Montpelier. The day after my story went national, my sales picked up a bunch. My small business developed some growing pains, if you will. Well, folks got wind of that, and literally on their lunch break the next day, I went to my back door and knocking on the door was someone I had never met, and behind her was 3 or 4 other people I'd never met. And they said, "We hear that you could use some help packing and shipping your t-shirts today. We've got an hour free, can we help?" And I said, "Please and thank you, come on in. My name's Bo, here's a Sharpie marker and a t-shirt, let's get to work." I had a senior citizen from a retirement home in Brattleboro send me a check for $1,000. And he says, "I need you to fight this as long as it takes." He says, "This absurd claim that Chick-fil-A's making is ridiculous, and I want to help fight it." So he literally sent me a check for $1,000. The phone rang one Friday, and on the phone, it was Ben and Jerry of Ben and Jerry's fame. And they said, "Hey, Bo, you got an hour? Because we've got some advice for you." I said, "Yes, sir, guys, I've got an hour." And Ben and Jerry essentially told me to trust my gut, keep doing what I was doing, and not worry about being too polite. So then I had the governor contact me and say, "Bo, my team would like to set up for you a legal fund. We would like to set up a Twitter account for you." And he says, "I would like to host a press conference in which we're going to tell Chick-fil-A, get out of the way."
Yeah.
So the folk, I can't even remember how many folks helped me, to be honest with you. I was so overwhelmed by the support I got from this state. But very specifically for this press conference, I want to introduce to you what I call Team Kale, a handful of very important, smart, and hardworking folks standing here behind me that have helped me every step of the way. This fight that I've done for 3 years has not for a moment felt like a single dude fighting a corporation. It's felt like a very smart and well-prepared team, a team that I call Team Kale. So I'm so lucky to have that support, and I wish I could thank everyone specifically, but I can't. But let me give you a couple examples of Team Kale here, please. Heidi Tringe has helped me with PR and press, and she's essentially just helped me organize my thoughts during some of these kind of confusing times. When I've asked her for something, she's given me whatever I've needed within hours, and I thank her very much for that. Right over here, I've got Jeff Weinstein, co-owner of Two Guys in Vermont Soup. Without asking my permission, one night, Jeff wrote me and said, "Hey, I've started a petition on change.org to try to put some pressure on the execs at Chick-fil-A and at the lawyers, the reviewing attorneys at the Trademark office." Well, that petition within 3 months got 44,000 signatures and notes from across the country. So we certainly applied a lot of pressure on them. This is my daughter, Kelly Diane. I call her Kelly D. And this is my wife, Melissa. Nobody knows more than these two how chaotic my life has been on and off for the past 3 years. And I appreciate them so much, and I appreciate them dealing with my ups and downs and just what this has required of me. From the beginning, Kelly D asked me on nearly a weekly basis, "Dad, is Chick-fil-A gonna beat us? Are they gonna beat us? Are we gonna cease and desist?" And each time I tell him, "No, darling, no, we got this."
Yeah.
My mother lives right down the street from me, and every time I need a little help or a little advice, I call her, and ultimately she winds up saying, "Son, I'm very proud of you," and that helps. Back here in the green hat, I've got a good friend named Cara Barbero. She's started out as a customer, has turned into a really good friend and kind of a go-to gal when helping me in my studio. Just last night, when I considered that there might be some visitors or press in my studio, I realized my studio was a mess and I needed some help quick. So guess who I called, and guess who showed up and helped me clean my studio until 9:30 last night. Glenn Sturgis here is owner of Capital Copy. We've done business for a number of years, and he's made it extremely easy for me to do business with him. And I just want to reiterate that if Chick-fil-A was told to cease and desist, well, that has real ripples effects, and it really affects the creative economy. It would have affected his business, and I'm glad to not only continue doing business with him, I want to do more and more business with him. I'd like to introduce Brian Murphy, the tall fellow in the back with glasses, and his children, Aiden and Grace. They are local friends. Brian's wife happens to be my dentist. Well, when my business was suffering growing pains and I was having a hard time completing all my orders, for an entire month, Brian would drive by my house in the evening. He would pick up blank envelopes that needed to be hand addressed. He would take them home to his family. All four of them would set up an assembly line, hand address hundreds of envelopes each night, bring them back to me the next day, and ask for more blank envelopes. Kim Smith, right here in the purple fleece, has been a dear friend. She helped me. I needed an employee as the business began to grow. And Kim stepped in immediately and became essentially an office manager. She took what had been sort of a loosey-goosey organization and let's just say brought a little bit of discipline to it. And I needed that, and I thank you for that. Right behind me here, Tim and Sheila Bevins, local owners of Bevins & Sons Printing Company. I could go on and on about these two. This couple, I've never known two people with a better work ethic. When my business needed help, they came to me and they said, "Anything we can do at all to help you, we are there." And I said, "Well, all right, how much will it cost?" And they said, "This much." And the price they offered was so low, it was charity to me that I told them, "No, double that price." We shook hands and we've worked together very successfully for 3.5 years, and I appreciate them more than they'll ever know. So finally, right here in the middle, Mr. Barry T. Schweenard, owner of Comfort Colors T-shirts over in Northfield, and his right-hand man, Kevin. Kevin, I can't remember your last name.
Camisa.
Say it again.
Camisa. Which
Camisa.
is Spanish for sure.
Kevin Camisa. These two run Comfort Colors T-shirts and apparel over in Northfield. I'm sure you're all familiar with them. Well, 14 years ago, when I first started making T-shirts, I had no idea where to get blank T-shirts, and a local art teacher said, "The best quality T-shirts in the United States are sold 7 miles down the road. Go introduce yourself to them." So I went in there and I said, "Yo, I'm a small-time artist. I got this shirt called Eat More Kale that I'd like to make." I said, "Can I buy a couple of shirts from you?" They waived any minimum requirement purchases and almost from the get-go gave me a price that they give some of their best distributors. They have made running a small-time business so perfectly easy for me and affordable with a great product that if it weren't for them and their t-shirts, nobody would be talking about Eat More Kale. Now, I shouldn't have said finally, because hiding back here, the handsome man with the long beard deserves a huge round of applause. This is Mr. Paul Betts, local farmer, who in 2001 came to me after learning that I was making hand-printed t-shirts with simple slogans. Paul approached me and said, "Bo, I need a shirt that says, 'Eat More Kale.'" And I said, "You need what? Eat more what?" He says, "Kale." I said, "Well, what is kale?" He says, "Look at my booth. It's all that green stuff." He says, "I've had a bumper crop and I need to sell some. I need you to make 3 shirts that say, 'Eat More Kale' for me." And I said, "Well, what do you want it to look like?" He says, "I'm the farmer, you're the t-shirt. Go home and design a shirt for me, please." So I made him 3 shirts. He wore them to the farmers markets for a couple of weeks. A couple of weeks later, I had people coming into my booth and flipping through, saying, "Where's the Eat More Kale shirt? Where's the shirt that Paul's wearing?" So I approached Paul and I said, "Paul, people want to buy this shirt." He says, "Sell and print as many as you'd like, and at the end of this year, if you sell a bunch, maybe I could get a free one." Well, let's say for a whole bunch of years, I hope I've been good on my end and given him plenty of free shirts, I hope. But Paul, if you hadn't given me this idea, none of this would have happened.
Yeah.
You should be standing up here. I want to thank one more person, and then we're going to get on to the governor and my lawyer. Mr. Eric Bigglestone right here is co-owner of Capital Stationers here in town. And for years, he's been an awesome customer of mine. He helped me into the world of retail. And to have a shop in downtown Montpelier that has Eat More Kale up front season after season, year after year. He's been great for my business, and I hope I'm good for his business. So now finally, what can you say about living in a state where the governor not once, but twice will stand side by side with me like this? And it's not only today. My mother volunteers here in the State House, and she reports from me from time to time. She says, "Peter asked about you. Governor Shumlin's wondering about your case. He hopes you're doing fine and hanging in there." And anyone that's good to me and good to my mom that way, thank you for that. I really appreciate it. Governor Shumlin, thank you.
Hey, thank you so much, Bo. I am so honored to stand here with Team Kale when this extraordinary victory, not just for Eat More Kale, but for Vermont. This is a huge moment. So congratulations to Team Kale for sticking with it. I just got to say that it is so rare in this world today where big corporations get their big lawyers to make outrageous cases that usually win, to actually stand here and have a victory, not just for Eat More Kale and for Bo and Melissa and Kelly B and Jane and this has been a family and group effort for Vermont, but for the entire state of Vermont. Because this is more than just about a victory for Eat More Kale. It's a victory for Grow Local. It's a victory for Vermont's small food and farm agricultural renaissance. And it's a victory for Vermont, this little state, to be able to say to the corporate lawyers of the big food manufacturers that don't want us to stand up for what's in our food, don't want consumers to know what they're eating, hey, wait a minute. Vermont's common sense will prevail over your corporate lawyers and your big corporations. It's a big moment for us. Let's keep it up. Bo, you're a shining example of why Vermont's independence, entrepreneurial spirit, and good common sense will prevail every single time. Way to go.
Hey.
I thank you, Governor. I'd like to add one thing to that. I think one of the lessons that I've learned is the power of social media. You know, we have the ability to really shine the light on corporate shenanigans these days, and I feel like I was kind of at the perfect spot with social media when all of this hit the fan, if you will. But I do hope that corporations have learned a lesson, and I hope that they're not going to send cease and desist letters as arbitrarily as they once had when they were convinced that they were working in the shadows. They're not in the shadows anymore. We have the ability to shine a spotlight on them, and I hope I taught a business or two that lesson.
Yeah.
So I would like Daniel Richardson, my lawyer, to stand up and say a few words. You know, there hasn't been a lawyer for 3 years that's told me that I have a chance in this case. I've been told by expert after expert after expert that I was barking up the wrong tree and that those billionaires were going to squash me. Now, if it hadn't been for Dan in the fall of 2001 agreeing to fight this, I might have rolled over just like that. I may not have had any options. Now, Dan has admitted to me that he is not an intellectual property specialist, and he told me from the start, he said, this is going to be a marathon. He says, it's going to take you longer than you've ever dreamed. He said, but he's going to do his homework, and he's going to learn as much about it as he can, and he's going to get the help if he needs. And we did wind up enlisting the help of the University of New Hampshire Law School at Concord. They helped us spearhead this fight. But if Dan hadn't believed in me and believed in his ability to fight this case, I might have just rolled over. And so I'm so glad, Dan, I'm so glad that you had the kahunas and the desire to fight this and to fight it for as long as it was going to take. I thank you. I thank you. You've changed my life because of that.
That could be one of the nicest things ever said about me. And I'm glad it was on tape. There's a quick story I want to tell about Bo that happened early on in this case. I was in my office and I received a call from a Boston radio station saying, we'd like to interview you for the controversy that's arisen. And I said, you don't want to talk to me. I'm just the lawyer. I'm not all that interesting. You want to talk to Bo. Bo is the center of this story and the heart of the story. And they said, we agree. 100%. We just can't find him. and I said, well, that's impossible. Oh, Bo, you can always find Bo. Did you try calling his home? They said yes. And so I said, well, let me try. When you need him, we need him by noon. So I called several times, and eventually I got his wife, Melissa. And I said, Melissa, we can't find Bo. This radio station wants to talk to him in Boston. It's the big radio station down there. And she said, oh, it's Wednesday. That's Bo's Meals on Wheels Day. It's hard to get him on Wednesday mornings. And I'll tell you, this isn't the first time I've had trouble tracking down a client for a deadline or an important event. But it has never been one of those instances where they're doing their weekly charitable work. It's usually the other way around, that the bar has to, call them and wake them up. But that speaks to Bo's essential nature. Bo really has downplayed, his role in today's press conference, but he's the heart and soul of this case, and he's the reason why we're all here and why this case worked, because my words were just words, but he's the one who put it up the fight, and he's the one who put himself on the front line and put himself in the public eye. But he's one of those caring and dedicated people that inspires others to be better than they usually are. I think this case, we're here today in success, in part for that reason, because Bo went to social media, but there's lots of people on social media that don't necessarily succeed. Shouting doesn't necessarily make you right. Being the loudest voice in the room doesn't make you right. Bo succeeded because he was right, and because his trademark deserves to be issued. His product deserves the protection that is offered to the commercial enterprises to protect them from imitators, to protect the public primarily. Somebody else is making to cash in on Bo's hard work. So I can tell you the legal story, but it's probably not the most exciting legal story. It's a classic case of administrative law. We applied in 2011 in August for a trademark. We filed, everything was going fine. I received the cease and desist letter, and I'll be honest, my first response was to tell Bo, well, I'm sorry, you don't fight $1 billion company with a pro bono attorney. But we did, and maybe it was foolishness on both of our parts, but today speaks differently. I do want to thank Ashlyn Lembry, who is the head of the University of New Hampshire's Intellectual Property Law Clinic, who provided invaluable substantive support. As a small practitioner in a small state, I take on a number of cases in which I know that I have the basic groundings, but I don't do it every day. No lawyer, very few lawyers in Vermont can. And it's people like Ashlyn and these legal clinics that provide the substantive support that allow us to go forward, that give us the ability to make the arguments and to make the case that we need to on these national level cases. And we wouldn't have been able to do it without Ms. Lembry and her clinic and the student practitioners who supported us. So we waited. This was essentially an administrative waiting game for 3 years. And when you wait in administrative law, it's often because you're waiting for the other shoe to drop and for them to show you the door. And I can't tell you why this changed, other than the fact, and I think this is something that we should be grateful for, that I think Chick-fil-A, through the social media, got to meet Bo, and got to meet the people of Vermont, and got to meet the Team Kale that supported him. And that's why we're here today, because they recognize that this wasn't some fly-by-night operation, this wasn't some competitive business, that this was an honest, hard-working guy raising 2 children in a small town in Vermont and trying to make his way in the world, just as their founder tried to make his way in the world a generation ago. And so, by recognizing that, they backed down, and we should be grateful for that. And I certainly thank Chick-fil-A for recognizing that common humanity. And so, once that happened, the administrative process really opened up, and we went through as I expected 3.5 years ago. I don't know if I would have made that promise to Bo to go free if I knew 3.5 years. But we all make mistakes. But thank you, and that's essentially the legal case. And Bo now has his notice of approval. We have a few more administrative things to clean up, but his trademark will be issued.
Heidi wanted me to remind y'all that, speaking of shining a light on shenanigans, a filmmaker named Jim Lance approached me 3 years ago, and he said, "Bo, this is a good story. This is a good story. We need to tell this story." And I said, "Well, bring your cameras." I'm not bashful. So he used Kickstarter and raised just under $100,000 to make a full-length documentary film that he has named A Defiant Dude. So, within a year or so, we hope to have a full-length documentary film about corporate bullies, about trademark law, and some of its absurdness or absurdities. But I look forward to that, and maybe I'll see y'all at a movie premiere in a year or so. Jeff's reminded me that I have a website called eatmorekale.com.
Yeah, there you go.
Another businessman, thank you. And I wonder while I'm here, if anyone has any questions for me, my lawyer, the governor, anyone, will certainly take some questions.
How big has your business gotten?
The day after the governor had his initial press conference with me, I did 1 year's worth of business in one single day. So the growth is, Chick-fil-A did me a bit of a favor. They handed me lemons and I made lemonade. While my business, like any business, has its ups and downs, a down now is better than an up was before Chick-fil-A told me to cease and desist. I still have a day job at a local bakery, though. Throughout all of this, I have not quit my day job. Yes, Chris?
Are you going to be putting a TN after you want Kale?
It's actually an R. It's a circled R is the official register. And I am, yes, and I have to maintain the trademark. So that's part of my obligation, yes. Yeah.
Are you going to hand cut that stencil with your fingers? Or?
That's the tricky part. That's where Tim and Sheila are going to make me some professional screens. So yes, I'm going to be a professional screen printer soon. Yes, ma'am. Kelly D, she likes your designs. I try not to push Kelly D, but every now and then she comes up with some great ideas. And when I post her designs on Facebook, they become the immediate bestseller of the week, and people forget Eat More Kale for a little while. So yes, and that's one of those things, when I think of this business, and when I think about the audacity of being told to cease and desist as I built a business, that every now and then I allow myself to daydream of the idea of having a business that I could one day pass on to my daughter or son if they want it. And now with this trademark, my business is a solid asset, a very tangible asset now, that Kelly D, if you would like it one day, it's all yours.
Bittersweet the first time you have to send a cease and desist letter?
That's an interesting point. So I am now in the position of having to protect my trademark, and here's my promise to everybody. I am not going to be arbitrary. I'm not going to protect apples to zebras the way Chick-fil-A felt like they could do. I am going to be as tenacious as a pit bull when it comes to the phrase "Eat More Kale" on apparel, merchandise, or stickers. I will fight like a junkyard bulldog for that design now. And I have fought before for it. But if someone wants to make a shirt that says "Eat More Cauliflower" or "Eat More Sardines," go for it. Go see how much fun it can be printing t-shirts until midnight. And see how rich they get.
How many shirts do you
Store
sell?
governors is okay?
Go for it. How many shirts do I sell?
In a year.
In a year. Well, you'll have to do the math for me. If I sell 10 to 15 shirts in a day, I feel like I'm doing something good with my business. And that keeps me busy and puts a little bit of money in the bank account.
Eat more Kale! 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 Eat more Kale!
Look what we have. We do have one more question.
No, I was going to just ask that with respect intended, is when the last time you sat down and had it?
Wouldn't I be a hypocrite if I didn't eat lots
I
of
wasn't
kale?
going there, but
No.
I was
No.
just curious.
It is funny. Excuse me, kale in my mouth now. People that don't know me in person often presume I'm the king of vegans, and they'll send me emails declaring me such, and they'll declare how much they hate omnivores and hamburger eaters, and I have to write them back and say, where on my shirt does it say don't eat a chocolate chip cookie, or don't eat a locally grass-fed Vermont burger? So no, you can tell by looking at me. I eat more of lots of things. But yes, because of my wife, she's a wonderful cook and loves to cook. Kicks me out of the kitchen, actually. We eat kale 3, 4, 5 times a week. Yes, I have to. Well, y'all, thank you very much. I'm honored to have all of y'all here. I would never was doing this alone. I knew that. I knew you had my back. So thank you for that, everyone.